Welcome into Hog Zone with Locked On. As always, Alex Stewart alongside John Nabors, and it's a different week. I left you hanging there. Same story, though. Arkansas losing the game. This time, though, at least it wasn't by one score. Instead, if my math is correct, 15 points, a 52-37 defeat at the hands of the Texas Longhorns. The 52 points also tied for second most ever scored against the Hogs in this long-standing rivalry, 81 meetings.
Yeah, it was not ideal. In fact, it was one of those things to where after halftime, you're like, okay, well, it's 4-point gain, 24-20, and you felt like there was still something going there. Maybe it was going to set up for another one-score loss, and Texas just took care of business. It felt like this may have been the let-go game. This might have been the thing where it all comes crashing down, and, you saw a backup quarterback come in. It was just a rough showing.
Well, see, again, I always say it, this is why I love you. You set up so much right there, so many good sound bites for later on in the show. As you mentioned, though, early in the first half, well, actually the entirety of the first half, it was a very back-and-forth game. The first 7 drives all ended in some form of points. From there, it was 4 stops, punt, 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 punt. Texas kicks a field goal. They go in up 24-20. What were you thinking? I'd mentioned the last time that we were together that I felt this was the game that they might catch. They always have one every single year, right? The one game that you don't think they're going to win. They end up pulling it out. I thought it was this. Did you have an inkling of hope that this might be the one?
No, I didn't.
Fair enough.
I didn't. It's just because it's set up to where it's a back-and-forth game offensively. It kind of was feeling like the Arkansas-Texas A&M game earlier, where it was just offense. And then as soon as Arkansas got that first stop, that 3 and out, and then they followed that up with a 3 and out on their own, I'm like, see, that you got to take it. If you were able to take advantage of that type of thing, it may have been different, but that just seems, again, whenever you get things handed to you, you never take advantage of it.
Well, and a big reason why is they couldn't really ever take advantage of because of the play of Arch Manning. But I just want to get to a quick soundbite from Bobby Petrino. He kind of discussed what happened in the second half. Like we said, very competitive first. They come out of the locker room, and Arch Manning really took over. But here's what Bobby Petrino had to say about what happened to them in the second half. Children, earmuffs.
Yeah, I felt like in the second half out there it was a old-fashioned kicking. They got after us. We couldn't stop them. I was worried going into the game that it might be a game where Arch, they try to get him going and get him confidence and really air it out, and they did.
Yeah, they did indeed. Let's actually pull up the Arch Manning stats because it's ridiculous. Are we sure that he is a Manning, by the way? I think we need a DNA test because he was showing some ridiculous athleticism out there.
Yeah, he was. And in fact, I love that this was the game that everyone's going to be like, oh, Arch Manning's back, Heisman Trophy. It's like, well, it always helps when you go up against Arkansas's defense. Maybe your stats are a little padded.
Yeah, and when you look at it, new career high in passing, 389 yards, 4 touchdowns through the air. Then, obviously, the yardage for the rushing and receiving is not great, but a touchdown in each of those categories. The first SEC player with a passing, rushing, and receiving touchdown in a single game since 2014. It really was the one Manning show out there. He lived up to what we thought he was going to be in the preseason coming into this year. Like you said, it's easy against that secondary, but man, is he that good, or is the Arkansas secondary that bad, or are we somewhere in the middle?
Well, I mean, I think that anytime you have a kind of seething blood in the water type of thing, you're going to have that type of performance. And also, Texas is needing style points. Yeah. They're needing to get into that playoff, and so they're going to try to just take care of business against anybody they can. They got Texas A&M coming up, which is insanely difficult, as we know. So I think that they were just going to pull out all the stops, get everybody talking about them, get everybody tweeting about them, trying to get that playoff contention back in the realm.
Well, the one thing I thought was interesting where Manning really was effective today was in the deep passing game, which is something that if you've watched Texas over the last couple games, it hasn't been as prominent. It's been a lot of screens. It's been a lot of bubbles. It's been getting Arch, trying to get him comfortable, at least. But today, and in the lead up to today, Petrino said, we have got to watch out for the deep shot. What they're going to do is they're going to run those bubble screens. They're going to hit a couple, and then they're going to get us over the top, and we have to be disciplined to not bite on the fakes when they come. And they bit almost every single time. I'm trying to think if there was a time where a Texas receiver wasn't open down the field and Manning just missed him.
Yeah, I can't think of a time. And there was even times where it looked like Manning had some pretty bad passes. And again, Arkansas just couldn't take advantage of those opportunities. And, even the play that was there at the goal line where they fumbled it, and they recovered it. It's like just those little balls that don't bounce your way ends up costing you.
So in a game like this, with a performance that we just saw from Arch, where you're setting a new career high in yards, you've scored 6 touchdowns all by yourself, or helped account for 6 touchdowns. You mentioned off the top, this was the let-go game. Could you pinpoint a moment in the game where you're like, that's where they kind of gave in?
I think it was the Taylon Green, whatever that was he was trying to do on that one play.
Yeah, that's a rough one.
And again, I love Taylon Green. I think he's played phenomenal. I think this year, I think he's done so many great things, but those are just the type of head-scratching mistakes you just can't have. And when you do, it's just like, how do you change any of that? How do you have your leader at the quarterback making decisions like that? And I know I'm sure there was some injury or whatever, but he got benched, and they went a different direction. I felt like that's kind of the waving the white flag, saying, hey, we're just going to try to get some reps in here and just call it a day.
But hey, look, KJ Jackson came in. He looked really, really good. We'll talk about him and his performance, compare the two later. I'm not saying there's a quarterback controversy, but there is something to be said with getting your freshman in, getting them some reps, getting them comfortable for next year should he choose to stay. But I do want to kind of go back to your point about about being disappointed about the team giving up. And Bobby Petrino sort of said as much in his post-game press conference. So if we can go ahead and pull that clip up, Petrino disappointed in kind of how the team finished the day.
Yeah, I mean, I think what they've done a nice job of is sticking together and, practicing hard and working hard and competing. And they competed hard, most of them. But there was just a few things I saw coming off the sideline, a few miles running that we haven't had. So I was just disappointed in that.
Look, I don't want to say it's expected, but when you have the record they have, when you have the losing streak that they have, 9 straight games, you haven't won one in the SEC, it's honestly kind of a miracle they lasted this long sticking together.
Yeah, that's how I look at it. I know that you still lost, and it doesn't matter. There's no moral victories. But if you would have told me that Arkansas was going to lose out the rest of the year when Petrino took over, which is what it looked like it's going to be, I would have said, oh, geez, man, they won't even make it past the Mississippi State game without people just letting go. But they haven't. And I get it. You don't want to give up. But at some point, when you keep just having that hammer hit you, boom, 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 over and over and over again, the chips are just going to start falling. And I give them credit, but I'm just, again, impressed that they lasted this long and that they were able to do this, but sheesh, it's just unfortunate it had to happen against Texas.
I was going to say, that's literally the worst opponent that it could happen to, because in these rivalry games, you're looking for any form of, beating them mentally, leaving a scar that's going to last a little bit longer than that L, knowing that you dominated a team so fully that they broke, especially when it's your rival. And Texas did exactly that. The 52 points, the making Taylon Green make poor decisions. He was 10 of 20 today. Just pure domination, and it is a huge notch, in my opinion, in Texas's belt, even though it doesn't look like it on paper, beating what was a 2-8 Arkansas team coming in today.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they got to win the games that are in front of them, and they are a team that started off rough, and they're trying to get back into being considered, especially the way they got beat by Georgia here recently, too. So, again, it's the way you played, the way you started it, it gave a lot of people hope, but that's what makes me feel like it was a let go, because if it was one thing if you started that badly, but you still fought for it, you were still there, but it just took a few mistakes to really start making it all go downhill.
Well, the thing is, they do still have a little bit to fight for, right? There is that brotherhood. No matter how bad you get beat, no matter how long the losing streak is, no matter how tough it looks, you are a band of brothers together. You have fought together. And with this being the last game, it might be the best thing for them, because there is the motivation of, hey, look, we got to send these seniors out on top. We got to give them a happy memory, beat our rival in the battle line rivalry, send them out, make everybody happy, do it for the seniors, and that might keep them together, be just enough glue to keep this group cohesive for one more week. Hey, look, though, we have plenty more to talk about in this game this Saturday. We'll be back on the other side of the break with THV to do just that.
Hog Zone with Locked On Razorbacks is sponsored by Bet Saracen, Arkansas's favorite sports betting app.
Welcome back into Hog Zone with Locked On. I'm Alex Stewart, and joining me for this one, we got the whole crew on tap. John Nabors, as you know, but also our friends down in Little Rock from THV. Pop up the boxes so we can see everybody. Hello, everyone. Arkansas losing another one, so we got to, talk about that again. 52-37, the final score against the Texas Longhorns. I think the good folks at home have heard John and I talk long enough. So let's start right out to THV. Let's just get your guys' thoughts right off the bat. Wherever you want to go with this, the floor is yours.
Well, right off the bat, I mean, it was slightly different, I guess, in the sense that it wasn't a single-digit loss. It now means Arkansas is out of contention. If they had lost this game and Mizzou by single digits, they would have tied the record for most single-digit losses in a college football season. That's now out of reach. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but it's a thing. Yeah, look, I mean, you guys kind of started to touch on it, and we heard Bobby Petrino talk about it in the first bit of the show there. The takeaway for me, the main one at least, was less about the actual play on the field. We expected Arkansas to lose. It's what they've done now for 9 games in a row. But it is the first time that we've heard Bobby Petrino say guys have started to give up. And like you guys said, that's been the most impressive, I think. Really, for me, maybe the only impressive thing about Bobby Petrino's interim head coaching gig here has been he has been able to get the guys to keep buying in, keep playing for something, even if it's not a postseason berth, or it's at least playing for each other, or playing to get something on film. And you started to see, I think, what I expected to see a few weeks ago, so shout out to them, but we started to see that today, where they really did seem to start letting go of the rope. It means next week could get messy if they really do lose the team, but hopefully not. There's a trophy on the line.
There is. It really is unfortunate for Bobby Petrino because I do think players like him and they want to play for him, and that's been clear by the hustle and the effort that they've put forth in these, 6 games that he has been their interim head coach. At the end of the day, you have to win football games to continue to be the head coach, and because Petrino hasn't done that, he's not going to be the head coach for this team. That's like, we can almost say that for certain. And those of you out there who think otherwise, you can hit me up on Twitter or Facebook. Yeah, clip it and come find me. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think you're a little crazy if you do think that's going to happen. It's got to be someone else. But it seems like players like him. And it is an unfortunate part because they've played hard for him. And obviously they let go of the rope a little bit in this game. But as you guys mentioned earlier, it's impressive that they've made it this far to where they're just now letting go of the rope. So as you mentioned as well, Tyler, this game coming up against Missouri, it is a rivalry game that's been created out of thin air that now has a trophy that has been built up. Like I myself do think it's a little bit of a rivalry, and I know a lot of old-time fans still don't think that way. But I think it is, and I know maybe we'll talk more about that game later on. But
every rivalry game was created out of thin air at one point. You got to embrace it. No, I really do enjoy watching this battle line thing. Grow is probably the wrong word, but continue to stagnate, and it's the same game every single year. Yeah. Hopefully it won't be as snowy in Fayetteville this time around. One other quick thing from this game, I want a tip of the cap to Mike Washington. Yeah. I think maybe the brightest spot on the Arkansas team this year, going over 1,000 yards for the season, only the 16th Razorback to ever do that. I mean, it's getting lost amongst, the awfulness of the record and everything else. But look, Mike Washington coming in here, he gets a year, and he has a season that'll go in the Razorback record books.
Yeah, it's really impressive, too. I mean, this was a guy who was a 2-star coming out of high school. He played college at I think he started at Buffalo, just moved his way around.
Shout out to his high school, Cicero North Syracuse. Yeah.
Just moved his way around to where he's finally playing football in the SEC, and I think people still wondered, is he going to be that go-to guy this season, or can he be that Jaquindon Jackson like he was last season? And he's definitely been to that level, I would say. And I think many people thought maybe Braylon Russell would get more carries and would be that guy this season, and it hasn't been. It's been Mike Washington. He's stepped up and been a great running back for Arkansas this season on a pretty good offense. It just stinks that they haven't put together any wins, and they didn't deserve to win this game. And Mike Washington's played great the entire year. Hopefully people won't remember him for his one bad mistake, and it was a costly mistake in that fumble against Memphis, which made them lose. But yeah, I don't know.
That was long enough ago now, though, that at one point it looked like, that might cost them a chance at something this season. When you're 2-9, staring down the barrel at 2-10, one of those tends to stand out a little less, I think. But yeah, I mean, and again, KJ Jackson looked good when he got the opportunity. I think there is something to be said for he was definitely going 100%, his chance to get some looks on tape against a Texas team that at that point was, maybe taking their foot off the gas a little bit. But he came in, he looked good, he led some drives, and fumbled, but hey, we're used to seeing turnovers out of Arkansas quarterbacks this year. So nothing new, and I think, again, that's the story of the last few months. Nothing new in Razorback land.
Yeah, now, a lot of ground cover there, so I'm going to hit rewind to when Nick was talking, and let's go to the head coaching thing. So we're watching the game, right? We've got the broadcast pulled up, we got it turned up, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Pete Thamel jumps on and says, hey, I got some news for the Arkansas head coaching search. They got 4 names that I'm hearing getting tossed around. USF head coach Alex Stewart, Memphis head coach Ryan Silverfield, North Texas head coach Eric Morris, and then Alabama defensive coordinator Kane Womack. Now, again, this is ESPN and ABC's Pete Thamel, not 5 News' Alex Stewart or Locked On's John Nabors reporting this. That is from ESPN's Pete Thamel. Those are the 4 names that he is hearing are essentially finalists for the head coaching job. I'm going to throw it over to John really quick. What are your thoughts on those 4? Because I know you were very in on the James Franklin hiring.
Well, listen, I think that there's a lot of positive qualities to every coach, and there's ones that I would be a little bit more reserved on. But of those 4, I'll tell you what, the Eric Morris one is probably the one that has intrigued me the most here, especially recently. The dude's got a very explosive offense. He's from the coaching tree of Mike Leach. And I don't care what anybody says, North Texas isn't exactly set up for the most success. And he's doing a great job this year. And so I just think that that would be something that could re-energize. And I always felt like the best type of coach is an offensive-minded coach here at Arkansas. So I would love that. Obviously, Golish has got the SEC experience back when he was the offensive coordinator over at Tennessee. And I like what he's done at USF. Those would be my 2 main ones. Silverfield, maybe I wouldn't be totally against it. The Kane Womack one, though, I know he's from Fayetteville and all. And I actually went to high school with him. But it would be interesting. I'd have to see what his staff would look like. But I could probably get behind some of these coaches, maybe all of these coaches, but I think the 2 with Golish and Eric Morris would be the ones I would enjoy the most.
Look, if they win, we'll get behind the coach. That's an easy as that sort of situation. You win, everybody's going to back you. The one to me that is the most intriguing is going to be Alabama's defensive coordinator, Kane Womack, bringing a defensive mind to the hill. We've kind of seen what the offensive, Pittman was an offensive line guy, Petrino here, offense, and then in his former tenure as head coach, it was offense. Switch it up. Why not? Get weird with it. THV, what do you guys think real quick?
Well, look, I'm at the point here where instead of just throwing names at a dartboard, I figured out another thing. I made a wheel to figure out who the next Arkansas head coach is going to be. Let's see. The wheel has spoken. There you go, Ryan Silverfield.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah,
Nick,
no, he's on there. But the wheel says Ryan Silverfield, though
I'll spin it. You want me to spin it right now?
Yeah,
there you go, Nick.
Let Tyler finish the point, and then you spin it real quick.
Well, I was going to say, of those 4 names, I tend to agree with John, Golish, and Morris, the 2 that excite me most. Yeah. Morris, just the names of the quarterbacks that he's worked with. And I know a guy at a smaller school in Texas with the last name Morris, whose calling card is all the quarterbacks he's worked with, rings a lot of alarm bells. But he has done so much better with so much less at North Texas than he who must not be named ever did at SMU. Yes. I do think there would be some excitement there. I can also understand from the fan base perspective how Razorback fans feel like they want to deserve a bigger name.
Yeah. And they might get a bigger name, I'm not sure. And I do like Eric Morris as well. We talk about North Texas, a team that, assuming they end up winning tonight, is one step closer to making it to the playoff. Of course, making a playoff is a lot easier than it used to be, and that's why this whole coaching carousel thing may be slowing down more than it is speeding up at times, because you got a guy who can make the playoff. So do you hire him? Does he still coach the playoff, or does he leave the team and they do their playoff thing by themselves? But North Texas is a good team, a really good offense. I think the #1 offense in the country. They've got Drew Mestemaker, a quarterback that, maybe he'll come with Morris to Arkansas if Arkansas was to hire Morris. Mestemaker, one of the most explosive quarterbacks in the country, and I'm pretty sure he was a walk-on, so he might win the Burlsworth.
He didn't even start in high school, yeah.
Yeah, so that'd be really impressive if they were able to do that. But lots of great candidates we've got here on the wheel.
And see, that's the conundrum, right? If you want to hire a coach that's currently employed, well, you want him because he's winning, so you're probably not going to hear about it. The only time you would hear about it is if the coach is unemployed. you'd hear about it now. So there still may be some waiting left, although Pete Thamel did say expect something in a handful of days. What exactly that interpretation is, it remains to be seen. But hey, look, THV, thank you very much. John and I will be back to wrap up the show on the other side of this break here.
Hog Zone with Locked On Razorbacks is sponsored by Bet Saracen, Arkansas's favorite sports betting app.
Welcome back into Hog Zone with Locked On. Alex Stewart, John Nabors as always. We kind of touched on it earlier in the show, the motivation for this Arkansas team going into the regular season finale. And, well, there's no postseason, so just the season finale. Bobby Petrino's thoughts on the motivation for this team that doesn't really have a lot to play for.
There's not a lot left, you know. The message is we got 30-some kids that will walk on senior day. And they got one left. They've put a whole bunch of investment into this game of football for their entire life. Let's do it better next week or one more week and go out there and compete as hard as you possibly can and, you know, be able to come off that field and feel like I finished my career with the best possible attitude and toughness and commitment that I could.
I think that's about as good a reason to play as any. The question becomes, though, who will lead them onto the field? If we can quick pull up the quarterback stats, Taylon Green, again, benched in the third quarter of this game against Texas. KJ Jackson came in. You can see he did quite well, 16-29, 206 yards, touchdown through the air, and a touchdown on the ground. John, does Taylon come out for that final game, or is this sort of the changing of the guard here and maybe a sneak peek at what's ahead?
Yeah, to me, I think that you got to start Taylon if he's healthy. It's his final game. I agree. And if he's not, though, if there's any sort of issue, then go with KJ, get him the reps. But listen, you got to play for something. You got to play for pride. As Bobby Petrino said, it's your last game for so many players. Play for them as a team and try to go out on top. Make sure you give it your all. Hopefully, maybe they mess around and get a win. I don't know. But either way, it's going to be tough, but just give it your all.
Look, we've been saying there's always one, and now there is only one left. So if there's going to be the one, that has to be the one. Real quick, John, can they get it done, Missouri coming off a loss into this game?
No.
They're going to finish with a 10-loss season, which would be tied for the worst record in Arkansas history.
Don't remind me.
All right, we won't. Instead, we'll just wrap up the show playing for the Brotherhood next week. Arkansas against Missouri, the Battle Line rivalry. You know we'll be right back here next week talking about it. Hopefully a Hogs win. But for now, Alex Stewart, John Nabors, Hog Zone with Locked On.